Hello everyone, Just Podcast TV is here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified on new content.
Episode 167. Arrival in Paris. Bernard was shocked that James wanted the Remy 1982 all to himself, but there was nothing he could do. James was the new owner of the winery after all. Moreover, he had solved its problem as soon as he had arrived. He was entitled to keep its treasures for himself. In what was good wine without someone to drink it? Bernard asked himself. After a nod from Bernard, James used a special container to bring out some of the most expensive wine in the world. Wow! The fragrance of the wine instantly filled the wine cellar. Vanessa, Katie, Krista, come and try this. They drank right out of the container. That unrestrained feeling, it was like being some Greek god drinking a big bowl of wine and eating a big piece of meat. Of course, they should have picked up the wine and swirled it. They should have sipped and savored it carefully. Seeing James and the others swilling the wine like this, Bernard was speechless once again. Finally, he stammered, This is not the way to drink red wine. Seeing them gulping down the Remy 1982, Bernard felt that it was kind of blasphemy and desecration. But even if he was unwilling to accept it, he could only watch them taking big gulps of the precious vintage. He did not know that in James's eyes, he was not tasting wine. He was tasting the friendship he shared with his three companions. They were the most important people in his life. As long as they were happy, nothing else mattered. In his opinion, tasting life was much more meaningful than tasting wine. How do you feel? James asked with a smile when he saw the beauties drinking Remy 1982 in such a carefree manner. Oh my! Vanessa gave a thumbs up when she heard that. That's great! It tastes great! Katie, who was as gentle as a lamb, said, This taste is really wonderful. Krista was full of praise. She was the most tasteful of the three. It took a lot to impress her. Of course it's good, he said. Do you know why this wine is so good? Krista raised her eyebrows and asked, Why? Even old Bernard turned to look at James. He did not know what he was going to say. James was about to say something when Vanessa said, I know. This wine has just been taken out of the ice barrel. It has not been decanted for a long time. It tastes much better than the stuff you'd get out of a bottle. After listening to Vanessa's words, Bernard nodded repeatedly. Krista and Katie also felt that Vanessa's words made a lot of sense. But James shook his head and said, No, that's not it. The real reason is that you guys are drinking wine made by your own winery. That kind is the best. He couldn't help but laugh after saying that. The three beauties rolled their eyes at him, but they did it affectionately. The winery was finally on the right track. Over the next few days, James and the three beauties enjoyed the unique peace and comfort of the world's top winery, Chateau Remy. Such a relaxed and comfortable atmosphere, mixed with a lot of fun, made for a great time. No wonder it went by so fast. In a flash, 5 days had passed. Then James bid farewell to everyone at Chateau Remy and went to Paris. After all, the next check-in was at the Eiffel Tower in Paris. He could not stay here forever and enjoy this comfortable life. In front of the winery's main door, James took Bernard's hands. You're in charge of everything. Don't worry, sir. As long as I, Bernard, am here, you can rest assured about everything in the winery, Bernard said seriously. Good. You really know your stuff. I believe in you. James patted Bernard's shoulder and waved goodbye to all the workers who had come to see him off. Then he turned and left with the three beautiful women. Bernard and the other workers waved goodbye to James and the others. Although they hadn't spent a long time together, only a few days, they were sorry to see their new boss go. His charisma and carefree American attitude were like a breath of fresh air. They all looked reluctant to part with him, but the young master had to move forward. In the car, James looked at the scenery outside the window and asked the three beauties in the back seat, Ladies, what do you want to do the most when you arrive in Paris? You have to ask? Paris is the romance capital of the world. Of course I want to experience its romance first. Then, bye. The women laughed and responded in quick succession. Apart from its romance, Paris was also the world capital for luxury brands. Vanessa and the other two were not the only ones who had such thoughts. Everyone knew about Paris's reputation and went there with the same idea. Just buy whatever you want. Money is not a problem, James laughed. But he wanted to really drive the point home. Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Cartier, don't hold back. The only limit is how much you can carry. The women laughed with him. What woman doesn't like to do a little high-end shopping? But most aren't free to buy whatever strikes their fancy. James's words made the girls very happy, but it stunned the driver. He almost drove off the road in his surprise. He would never be able to say anything like that to his wife, but this young man was saying it to not one, but 3 women. How rich was he? Fortunately, Chateau Remy was not far from Bordeaux. The 4 of them were soon at the airport. From the plane, they saw the magnificent Seine, the imposing Montparnasse Tower, the unique Eiffel Tower, and the magnificent Arc de Triomphe. Before the plane landed, the 3 beauties were bursting with excitement. A few minutes later, as the 4 of them walked out of the airport, they felt the romantic atmosphere of Paris at once. Paris, we're here! The 3 women ran laughing out of the airport, jumping around happily. Episode 168. An Unexpected Reception. Hey, my friends. Welcome to the city of romance, Paris. Vernon stepped out of a Rolls-Royce Phantom not far away. When he saw James and the others, he walked up to them. Oh my God, Vernon, why are you here? It can't be a coincidence that we would bump into each other at the airport, right? Although he did have the contact information Vernon had given him, he hadn't gotten in touch yet. So what was the Frenchman doing at the airport? The 3 beauties also looked at Vernon with great surprise. What were the odds? Oh, of course. There is never any lack of coincidences in heaven's will in this world. God must have brought us together. Vernon smiled brightly and gave James a very friendly hug, like they were old friends meeting after a long time apart. After the hug, James said frankly, "All right, now give me the truth." Obviously, Vernon had not just arrived. He'd been waiting for them in his car. Vernon grinned. "I can't get anything past you. All right. I admit that I did know that you are coming to Paris. Remember, Bernard is an old friend of mine. When his boss comes to Paris, he knows about it." James laughed when he heard that. Vernon pointed at his own car and said to James, "My friend, please get in the car." When everyone was in, Vernon started the Rolls-Royce Phantom and said to James and the others, "Everyone, I am a native Parisian. I will take you around the romantic capital." The car drove James and the 3 beauties out of the Paris airport and into the streets. Vernon pointed out many sights as he drove along the Seine, with the Arc de Triomphe in the distance. At around dinner time, the car stopped in front of the Montparnasse Tower, the tallest building in Paris at 689 feet. Everything was arranged. Tonight's dinner was to be at the top of the skyscraper in the Universe restaurant. The upper level of the Universe restaurant was the best place to view Paris at night. After dinner, they could go to the upper level and take in a 360-degree view. Vernon was a gracious host. "My friends, I will now bring you to the best restaurant in Paris, the Universe restaurant. Enjoy the food and the hospitality." "Thank you," James nodded as he and the others quickly walked into the elevator. The Universe restaurant was a rotating restaurant. All of the walls and the floor were made of transparent glass. This was one of the landmarks of Paris, and it was a destination for tourists from all over the world. They all wanted to come to the Montparnasse Tower and eat the famous foie gras served at its restaurant. Very quickly, the elevator arrived at the top of the building. The restaurant's hostess greeted them. Vernon led the group straight to a VIP table that had already been reserved. Below the transparent dining room was Paris, where the lights were already on. As soon as they sat down, the 3 beauties could not help but take out their phones. James, who was used to this kind of situation, shrugged helplessly and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Vernon. What can I say? They love to take pictures." "To tell you the truth, my wife is about the same as them," Vernon said with a chuckle. "But my friend, your luck with women is really enviable." James laughed. Only when the women were done with their picture taking did Vernon wave his hand to signal the waiter. The two men had been chatting the entire time. When the waiter brought over the exquisite menu of the restaurant, Vernon deferred to James. James had had a long day, first leaving the winery, then taking a plane to Bordeaux, and finally arriving in Paris. He did feel hungry now. Therefore, he said immediately, "Let's start with foie gras for everyone. Krista, you can order the rest." "You have good taste," said Vernon. "The moment you arrived, you ordered the most famous French dish." James smiled and said, "Oh, I only know a little about French culture." The goose liver tasted really good, and so did all the other dishes. After the banquet, the group went to the roof to enjoy the night view, and then they went to their hotel. Vernon was an excellent tour guide. Lying on the soft and comfortable bed in the hotel that night, James suddenly recalled his past. Back then, going abroad had always been a dream, but now he could stay in a top hotel in a city like Paris, and he could stay as long as he wanted. It was really unbelievable. And all of this had been brought to him by the sudden appearance of the system, which had caused such a tremendous change in his life. He wondered what kind of inconceivable reward the Eiffel Tower's check-in would give him tomorrow. When the sunlight of Paris shone into the hotel room, James finally woke up in a soft bed. He'd had an amazing sleep, and it was already late morning. He suddenly remembered that he had to go to the Eiffel Tower's check-in today. He was about to wake up the three beauties so they could check out the high-end shops, but then he saw a note that had been slipped under the door. It was from Krista, and it said that the three girls had already woken up and gone out. They were going to buy some cosmetics, perfume, bags, and clothing. They knew that James didn't like shopping. It was awkward for a man like him to follow girls from store to store, so they decided to leave him alone. James looked at the note and snorted. Abandoned already. Although he did not have three beautiful women pestering him right now and could go directly to the Eiffel Tower's check-in, so this fit in with his plans, he still had a feeling of being neglected. "Forget it," he muttered. "This is a great opportunity. I'll go to the check-in right now." He took the room card and headed out. The Eiffel Tower was located on the south bank of the Seine in Paris. James took a taxi and was soon at the famous landmark. There were tourists from all over the world here. The outside of the tower was very lively. It looked like a miniature depiction of world harmony. James raised his head and took a look. The entire tower was made of wrought iron. It really looked magnificent and unique. However, he only took a brief look at it. He wasn't here to see the scenery, but to see the check-in. He already knew the rules of the system. He realized that the more famous a place was, the higher the reward one would receive there. He wondered what kind of shocking reward he would receive at a world landmark like this. Inside the Eiffel Tower was a passage that led to the top, but to enter one had to buy a ticket, and the line was long, looping and doubling back on itself. After all, people from all over the world wanted to come here to see Paris from above. However, James, who had seen the night view of Paris from the top floor of the Montparnasse Tower last night, had no interest in it. After asking around, he learned that this place also had VIP tickets. They were quite expensive. Sure enough, everywhere was the same. It was easy to do things with money. James was not short of money now. He quickly bought a VIP ticket. Under the curious eyes of countless tourists, he strode into the Eiffel Tower. The VIP ticket entitled James to a personal guide who kept telling him about the Eiffel Tower's history, but he wasn't paying any attention to her. A girl in the long line called out, "Hey, good looking, can you take me with you? I can already tell you're an American like me." Hearing that familiar accent got James's attention. Moreover, he saw that the speaker was a girl with long hair that fluttered in the wind. She could definitely be called a beauty. The girl wore a pair of black-framed glasses without lenses, which looked good on her. Although there was still a gap between her and his companions, each of whom was at least a 9, who doesn't like a little variety from time to time? James stopped and turned his head to look back at her more carefully. "Are you from the States?" he asked. After all three beauties were off doing their own thing. Why shouldn't he do the same? This was a rare opportunity. "Yeah, I'm from Seattle. I'm here by myself. I wouldn't mind seeing the sights with you." "I live in New York. I'm sorry, but I only bought one ticket," James said as he continued on his way. She looked okay, but the way she was throwing herself at him was a turnoff. The girl did not want to give up and shouted at James from afar. "Hey, cutie, don't be so heartless. Just bring me along." James just kept going. The people around him all looked at him with envy. That kind of thing must happen to him all the time. "I wish I had problems like that." James sighed in his heart. He was already half a step into the Eiffel Tower, handing his ticket to a member of the staff that checked tickets at the door. At this moment, the notification of the success of the check-in sounded in James's mind. "The check-in has succeeded. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the location of Paris Fashion Week, the Vera Garden. The relevant property information will be delivered to the host by express delivery within 10 minutes. Please do not leave the check-in area for the time being. The next check-in spot is the entrance of the University of Cambridge." James stopped and immediately retracted the foot that had already stepped into the tower. What a waste of my VIP ticket," James muttered as he turned around to leave. His guide was confused. She thought that something had gone wrong and angered this distinguished customer, so she hurriedly chased after him. James didn't bother to explain. He immediately handed his ticket to the girl in the fake eyeglasses. "Something came up. Here, take my ticket." Before the girl could react, James had already left. The girl was stunned for a moment at her unexpected good fortune. "Hey, good looking, wait a moment." But James was already gone. The girl looked at the place where James's back had disappeared into the crowd. She stomped her foot and said, "I haven't even given you a hug yet. Why are you in such a hurry?" She did not know that James was terrified of exactly that. Because of a hug, his 3 companions had almost made him a eunuch. Fortunately, he ran fast. It seemed that sometimes being outstanding had its drawbacks. Episode 169, A Friend from Back Home. James didn't go too far because he still had to wait for the express delivery. Just as he was thinking about it, a phone call came in. He picked it up immediately. A very polite voice came from the other end of the phone. "Hello, may I ask if you are James Tucker, sir?" "Yes, I'm James," he replied. "Hello, Mr. Tucker. I'm the courier for your express delivery. I don't know your exact location at the Eiffel Tower. You have an important express delivery. I need you to sign for it." James quickly arranged to meet with the courier down on the street. He hung up the phone and walked towards the agreed-upon place. Not long after, the courier delivered the package to James. Although James already knew what reward he was getting, he was still very excited. He knew a little bit about the history of Vera Garden. Originally the private property of a queen, it had later become an important public place in Paris. Many important gatherings were held here, including Paris Fashion Week. Now it was James's, although he did not know what method the system had used to get the former queen's garden. The value of this thing could not be measured in money. It was a famous Parisian landmark. Therefore, when James opened the express delivery envelope and saw the deed to the property inside, his mood was indescribable. All right, the next stop is Cambridge in England. It's far from here. Why don't I just enjoy the garden and the palace with my 3 beauties? After James finished reading, he put away the relevant documents and took out his phone to call Krista. She was the most sensible of the 3 women, so normally he would contact her first if anything happened. He knew she would keep an eye on the other 2. "Hey, Krista, where are you guys?" he asked her. "Sir, we are..." However, just as Krista picked up the phone, Vanessa snatched it from her and said, "Of course we are buying and buying." James did not care about money. He did not need money now, but after he heard Vanessa say this, he asked her in a serious tone, "How much have you spent?" "What's wrong, James? Don't tell me you're going back on your offer to let us buy whatever we want. I used my phone to record what you said in the car." James was taken aback by that, but he wanted to tease Vanessa a little. He coughed and deliberately spoke without any confidence. Of course I remember what I said. I won't go back on my word. It's just that, how much is it? I don't want to be surprised when I get the bill." "Don't be too nervous," Vanessa said. "Actually, the 3 of us spent not much, just 200 or 300 million. James asked loudly, "What? In just one morning? You spent $200 or $300 million? How could they have thrown so much away so fast?" "Well, no, it's 200 or 300 million euros, Vanessa answered nervously. James shouted, "What?" again, which made Vanessa's heart jump. But then he added, "You only spent 200 to 300 million euros? I budgeted for way more than that." Vanessa was about to say something, but Krista grabbed the phone back from her. Okay, the two of you can stop teasing each other." James heard Vanessa laughing in the background. "I was just kidding." Krista explained that the three of them hadn't spent a single cent. That girl, what a character. He'd wanted to tease her, but he hadn't expected her to tease him. It was really hard to guard against her. Krista said, "We heard there is a grand Paris fashion event in Vera Garden. We want to go and take a look." "Really? That's such a coincidence. I'm going to the Vera Garden too. Let's meet at the gate, and I'll go with you to take a look. I remember hearing about Paris Fashion Week when I was in New York. Lots of models attend the event, and I want to see them." In fact, he just wanted to see his reward. "Oh, that's good," Krista said happily. "I thought those were things that only girls cared about. I didn't expect you to be so interested in them. All right, let's go together." Half an hour later, James, Krista, and the other two beauties met at the entrance of the Vera Garden and prepared to go in together. Many world-class celebrities had come to participate in Paris Fashion Week. It seemed like a very grand fashion show. Of course, it wasn't just people in the fashion industry who came to participate in this event. There were also elites from all industries. Models, famous athletes, and even scientists were there. James wondered if he'd be able to meet any of the stars of the NBA. He was a big fan of basketball. Maybe he would be able to get a picture with one of them. Just inside the entrance, some kind of altercation was going on. James walked over and took a look. Before he could figure out what the quarrel was about, his eyes suddenly widened. The person arguing with the security guards at the entrance was none other than his close friend, the assistant chairman of Silverbell Corporation, who was known as the #1 person in the business world of New York City, Elliot Klein. "Elliot? Is that Elliot Klein?" James walked forward and patted his friend's shoulder, calling out to him in excitement. Elliot was so angry that his face turned red. He turned around to accost the crazy stranger who was bugging him, but he was shocked to see James's incomparably handsome face in front of his eyes. "James Tucker, as I live and breathe." After Elliot saw him clearly, he instantly patted James's shoulder. He was thrilled. Then the two of them burst into laughter at the same time and gave each other a big bear hug. What a delight to find each other so unexpectedly in this foreign country.